This conference will now be recorded.
Well, welcome everybody that's watching. Today I get to do one of my favorite things again, which is to interview my co-host JoAnn Forrester, because she's written a second book, and it's a follow-up to a first book she did. Um, so it's very exciting for me to have her here. Just as a quick introduction for people that are watching us for the very first time. So my co-host is JoAnn Forrester. She has been given the name by a client, and that's a whole other story from another video, of the Empress of Biz. In her day to day job, she is a business consultant. She has raised over $70 million to help her clients start or grow businesses. And beyond that, and I love this, every time I prepare an introduction for her, I learn even more stuff. She's a very big advocate for women. She's the co-founder and president of the Pennsylvania Women's Hall of Achievement. And also, she got an award from the SBA for the SBA Pennsylvania Woman Business Advocate. And by the way, for people that are not in the sphere of business, the SBA is one of our key institutions. I mean, for small business owners, a lot of times the SBA is the organization that helps them get their loan through a bank, and start up their business. So getting an award from the SBA in the sphere of business is a very, very big deal. Beyond that, she writes about women, past and present, who have made a difference in history. And before we get into her book, which, by the way, I have here, uh, this is her second book, by the way. And you can probably, I don't know if this will come out in the video, you can tell somebody chewed on it. Okay, that's one of the issues of having pets. But in fairness and full disclosure, it was the dog, it was not the cat. So for whatever it's worth, don't leave it out. Your dog might decide to try to read it and chew on it. But before we go into that book, I want to talk about another book. It's called The Cinderella Monologues, third edition, by an author of the name of Mila Johansson. And she did stories of women finding courage and success. And specifically, JoAnn had, oh, there we go, perfect. And JoAnn has a chapter in that book. It's called Crash Bang Pain. My life and brain were changed, altered, and never to be the same again. Where she talks about two significant brain traumas, and surviving life threatening surgery. I was, she told me the story. It's incredible. It's hair raising. I'm not going to steal her thunder, so get that book. But it actually ties into what we're going to do today also, because she talks a little bit about the role of Ginger the cat in helping with her recovery. And that also goes back, I will mention her first book, Ginger the Cat, the story of a rescue cat, which actually did win a prize. It got the Author's Zone Award. So that was the first book. Today we're going to be talking to her about the second book, Ginger the Cat's Fun Feline Facts. Everything you should know about cats. Again, here's my copy. Um, and I'll just mention and turn it over to JoAnn without stealing any thunder, that there is a third book coming out. It's called Ginger the Cat Loves Christmas. So, JoAnn, welcome to the show. Thank you for letting me interview you. Tell us a little bit about your second book and your first book, and maybe about the third book.
Okay, well, it's great to be back to talking to you, Sal, and it's always good to have a friend who likes animals like I do. And that's one of the main reasons I thought, oh, I got to send Sal this book. Uh, my books are about Ginger the cat. Ginger the cat was with me for 17 years. I met her up at coming back from a business trip. I had been one of those There's one of those trips that you make, and the client wants you to get 5 days' work done in 3. And this is when I was writing for a bank and helping them submit awards for the Small Business Administration. And we did that. In fact, that work actually won a national award. So I did a lot of that business writing, profiling people and helping them submit them for the awards. So coming back, I was exhausted. And there was a bed and breakfast in Emlington, PA. And I knew the owners. In fact, I had done some consulting, and it sat overlooking the Allegheny River up in, like I said, Emlington, PA. And I thought, okay, please have a room. I called, they had a room. So I got there, unloaded. The evening was just sitting on the porch and overlooking the Allegheny River. And it was just beautiful. And I was talking to one of the owners, Norma, and I felt this furry thing on my leg. And I looked down, and here's this beautiful gold and orange long hair cat with a white tipped tail. And she looked at me, and she had these beautiful green blue eyes. And I said, well, hello. And she went, meow. And I looked at Norma, and I said, I see you've added a cat. She says, we have, but we haven't. We are, she was thrown out of a car. We saw her, and we rescued her. But I can't have a cat here because there are some people that are actually allergic to animals. And while we're keeping her outside and we're feeding her, she's really a lovely cat and she needs a home. And she says, looks like she really likes you. And she's rolling at my feet. You know how they roll at your feet when they decide they like you and they're courting you. And I said to her, beautiful cat. But I had just put both of my cats, they had both died on me just a couple months ago. Not Ginger, but Samantha and Sarah. And they were buried in my backyard. And I says, I am never going to have another cat, dog, or ferret in my life. I'm finished. And I said, I don't want to go through that heartbreak again. I had both cats over 15 years. And, your heart breaks when they leave you. And Norma just looks at me. She says, oh, okay. And then this charming orange ball just kept courting me. And I decided I better go upstairs and just, get some sleep. So I went upstairs, fleeing temptation. Early the next morning, I came down to look at the river and the mist coming off the river. And there she was. And she went, meow. I said, oh, no, you're not coming home with me. So I pretended to read the paper, Sal. Ginger jumped up underneath the paper, put one paw on the left cheek, one paw on the right cheek, and looked and put her nose on my nose and went, meow. That was it. She came home with me. So she was with me 17 years, and we had many fur-raising adventures. And part of her adventures is when I did have the traumatic brain injuries. I never experienced an animal that thought that she was in charge of me. And she just literally took over. And if I got on the computer too long, because if I get on the computer then too long, I would get migraines and dizzy spells. So she would get up on the computer or lay on the keyboard, anything to distract me and go, ah! I knew I better go back to bed. She was with me for, like I said, 17 years. And she was just a marvel. And one day she protected me. My first brain injury, it took 2.5 years to recover. And that was from the end of 2010 to 2012. And then I was fine. I only worked part-time. Of course, a business owner, to them, part-time is 30 hours a week. You know that. You and I both know that. 60 hours a week is normal. And we don't think that of putting 70 hours in. I mean, the business needs to be done, we do it. But so from 2012 to 2019, and you and I did shows and that together, I was fine. And then I ended up, in fact, we were getting ready to do a show. And I had been sick all that week with a fever. And I don't get sick. I get really indignant when I'm sick. So my body knows to get better quick. But I was still running a fever. So I called and left the message to my doctor. And you and I were getting ready to do the show. And I told you, I said, Sal, I may jump off and take if the nurse or the doctor calls back, and which the nurse called back, and I told her what was happening. But in the meantime, my face started to go numb. And I didn't think, I thought, oh, maybe I have a pinched nerve. Maybe, I just didn't think I was having a stroke. That's exactly what I was. And the nurse told me, get off the phone now, call the ambulance, go to the hospital, which I did, and you ably took over. And when I was at the hospital, they triage you because you're having a stroke, and they did the MRIs, and I was by myself. My family was away. I did call one friend, and God bless her, Randy. She came back. She left work and came to be with me. But when the three surgeons came in, I didn't know they were surgeons, and then they told me they were surgeons. And after the MRI, they came back in and they said, we're pretty sure what's happening to you. Lyme disease is going around. And what it does is give a person a stroke, and in your case, also Bell's palsy. So I had both. They said, those will heal. You'll be uncomfortable for a while, and you may need therapy. But what we found, you will not heal from. You will most likely die before we can do anything about it. And they said, we found an aneurysm. So they found an aneurysm in my brain, midline. And they said, if it ruptures at home, you're gone. We can't, you can't get to the phone. You'll just be gone. So we had a long conversation. They did follow-up tests, and then they wanted me to heal. So 2.5 months later, we booked the surgery. And they kept on telling me there was only 6% chance of something going wrong on the operating table. There's 100% chance of you dying if you rupture at home. So, I took okay. But on the operating table, the aneurysm ruptured. And it was a battle for my life. My family was told I had 1 out of 4 chances of making it that night. And in the next 3 weeks, it was still iffy because evidently occurrences occur. I made it through. I know a lot of people were praying for me. I was in the hospital a total of 6 weeks. 2 weeks a week in ICU, a week in step down, and then they would send me to rehab. The whole time, Ginger the cat was had been taken to a friend's. So while I'm in rehab, this will give you an idea of Ginger the cat's personality. My friend was taking care of Ginger, Leanne, and I got a phone call, and I answered it, and she said, I want you to know something. As soon as you hear that, you start, what's going on? She says, your cat's fine. Okay. But my 2 boys' cats are underneath the bed crying. She beat the heck out of them. And she's on top of my bed, and every time they try to move out, she growls and they whimper and they go back in the bed, underneath the bed. She said, I kept on telling them, don't sniff her. She's a lady cat and she doesn't want to be bothered. So she became the dominant force in that house for 4 weeks. So that gives you a idea of her personality. When I came home, Leanne brought her home a couple days later. And at first, Sal, she wanted nothing to do with me. I had abandoned her. She had promised, when I was on the way out, that I would be back in a day. Well, that never happened. And so she ignored me for 2-3 hours. And then finally she came over and sniffed the bottom of my shoe. And all of a sudden, it was like she did a cat double take. She then jumped up at my lap like she did a long time ago and started sniffing my head. And then it was like, oh my, something really happened. And after that day, she would never leave me. She went everywhere I went. If she went out, she was back in 10 minutes, and then she would inspect me. You okay? So she became the nurse in charge. I had therapists coming in for months, and if she liked the therapist, I knew they would be good. If she didn't like the therapist, I knew they wouldn't be good for me. So that's the relationship that built. And when I would sleep, and that's a lot of that story is in the first book, Ginger the Cat. The story of a rescued cat. When I would sleep, one paw would be on top of the wrist and one paw would be underneath the wrist. It was like she was taking my pulse all night. When I would wake up, she would look at me and I'd look at her, and if her claws came out, and they never broke the skin, but they'd come out and she'd go, rah. I knew to take my medicine next to my bed. She knew I was going to have trouble before I did. And they have a wonderful sense of smell. They can see so much more than we can. They see at a different wavelength. So cats are a great predictor of health, and that's also in my second book. So when I wrote the first book, I told a lot of the story, and then some of her other shenanigans. She really got into a lot of trouble. And then the second book, I thought, cats are unique, and they can do things that we can't. And I mean, if they start to, if they're leaping and they start to fall, they turn themselves up, they right themselves up, and they land on their feet most of the time. And when they land on their feet, what I found out is they have like shock absorbers in their feet. So you and I land, we break something, or we sprain something, or we bruise something, and they just say, okay, dust themselves off, embarrassed because they fall, and go on. They are marvelously built. They have just gifts of mind and gifts of the body that we wish we had. I mean, the more I researched the cats, the ability to see, the ability to hear, I was just amazed at them and how they form relationships. One of the things I found out in the Fun Felines Facts is that cats develop their meows to talk to us. They really don't meow to one another. Cats can make 100 vocal sounds. And they have developed the meow very similar because it activates a part in our brain that is similar to a baby's cry. So when they want something from us, they know how to get our attention, especially at dinner time. You have a couple cats, right?
Yeah. Oh no, let me tell you, you've touched on a couple of points that I made notes from the book, and I'm thinking that people that watch this video are going to fall into two categories: people that already have cats, so they're going to relate to a lot of the things that we say. But hopefully, there's another category is people that are thinking of maybe having a cat and are trying to figure out what it's all about. And to those folks, here's the first thing I'll say, by the way, and I volunteered at the shelter for a long, long time. Um, a lot of people think, well, I'm going to go to the shelter, I'm going to pick a cat or a dog, and I'm going to adopt a cat. Well, newsflash, it's exactly the opposite. The cat picks you. They look at you, they somehow make a decision of whether they want to be with you or not. And trust me, you're not going to the shelter to pick a cat. You're going there to get interviewed, and maybe the cat will pick you or not, and you will know. So that's the first thing. Um, the other thing is, and again, people that maybe have not had animals, any type of animal, dogs, cats, don't realize this, but they do have some common traits, but they also have their individual personalities.
Yes.
That is amazing how you can establish different personalities of the cats. And if you think you're going to train the cat, let me tell you, you got it backwards. The cat's going to train you. And I'll just tell a quick story, JoAnn, because I know you will be able to relate to this. Um, I had a cat who was a rescue cat, more or less a Russian blue, but of course, not perfect.
Yeah.
Um, and every morning I'd get up, I'd have breakfast, toast and coffee, and he would love to get a little bit of butter. Long story short, over the course of a couple of weeks, he actually trained me that I got to the point that when I get up and I would set up, my silverware and my plate to have breakfast, I
Mhm.
would have to set up a second place for him with his silverware, and he would get his butter. And again, he trained me to do that. So it's amazing.
Yeah. Yes, they are very smart. Uh, One of the things that I was surprised, people think that dogs can, sit up and beg, which they will, but Ginger would sit up and beg. But if and I would always give her a special treat. But it was always when I was eating something that she liked. She loved yogurt. And as she got older, and she was what was considered a super geriatric cat, because when she passed at the age of 19, she was the equivalent of being 92 years old. I found that the last few years that I had to change her diet and give her there is cat food that's geared for geriatric cats. I had to um, softer stuff, more pleasantly appealing tasting. She became like, I don't like the look of this. What else do you got? That type of thing. Uh, so she's, for the last 3 years, she was definitely a geriatric cat, but she preferred the term super mature. She did not like the term geriatric. I used it a couple times and she was like, So, okay, you're super mature. I found that she was only in the last couple weeks with me did she stop sleeping with me. Then I knew something, we were at the end. But she was amazing, and she loved the song "Roll Me Over in the Clover." And what she would do, so if I sang that, she would roll over and over. And as soon as I stopped, she'd stop. But if I start singing it, she'd roll me over. She'd keep on rolling. So, and of course, then she would get a treat. But she was amazing, and their ability to adapt to you is and find ways to bond with you is just wonderful. And dogs do the same things, but cats do it in a more refined way. They really do. They don't jump on you unless there's something really bad going on. They don't, run and go, here I am. It's, well, hello, how are you? I'm here, pet me, and I'll rub against you. But they aren't that over exuberance that many dogs are. And I've had dogs, I've had cats, and I've had ferrets. Ferret was fun too. But when a cat bonds to you, that's a real gift. It really is.
Oh
So,
yeah, I mean, I can tell you one thing that, and again, every cat is different. I'm not saying you're going to be able to do this with every cat because it goes to the concept of, you can develop trust, you can develop friendship, you can develop love with your animals. These are all human emotions that, again, people that don't have these animals may not understand how you can have that type of bond, or how that you can have that type of emotion. But I had a cat that, after a long time of trying little by little, I actually got him to cuddle up with me for naps.
yeah.
And I could hold him like a little football or a little teddy bear. And that's hard for cats because that takes a lot of trust. Usually they like the high ground. Usually they like to be on top of you. So getting there was took a while, but we did get there.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Uh, One of the facts that people don't know that I found out that was amazing, and I talked about their hearing, but their ears, how they can point them forward, backwards, sideward almost. They have 32 muscles in their ears. Humans have 6, dogs have 18. So even though they're a lot smaller in ears wise, they have so much more control, and their ears are a good clue to their what's going on with them. if they like something, if they don't like something, if they feel threatened. Uh, and I was just amazed at how many muscles in their ears. And they have something, that little slit, you and I talked about it, that little slit in the ear, that's called a Henry's pocket. Nobody's quite sure what it is, although Ginger the cat informed me that was part of her enhanced antenna. Because their ears act like antennas. They can pick up sound, and it's just amazing. And one thing I learned is that when there's a storm coming, they'll hear it a lot sooner. They'll feel it through their paws, and they'll feel it through their ears. And Ginger used to, and I didn't pay too much attention, George, but one day it was beautiful out, and she kept on. She went downstairs, then she came up and she howled at me, and then she ran downstairs. And she must have done this about 7 or 8 times. So I thought, okay, there's something down the cellar that I need to see. Maybe she did knock something over, which happens. I went down, and when I went down and I'm looking for something, what's wrong, all of a sudden there was a terrible crack of thunder. All hell broke loose. Thunder, lightning, rain, like torrential rain. Thank God I was in that cellar, and the lightning hit around me. So when she started to urge me to go down the cellar, I knew I'd better pay attention. And in fact, in some of the Oriental countries like China and Japan, they are considered early earthquake or tsunami warnings, cats, because they hear, and they're much more sensitive, and they hear at a different range than we do. So that's one unique fact, and that's a good reason to have a cat.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
yeah,
no, absolutely. I don't know if it's vibration or hearing or what, but I had a similar experience once. I was actually just in my hammock outside relaxing. I had hung it up between two trees, and usually my dog would just be there next to me. And he got up and he started paying attention and he started looking very intently at a tree in the background. And I'm thinking, well, there's a bird over there, there's a crow, whatever. I, didn't pay too much attention, but he was just sitting, looking very intently at that tree for about 10 seconds. And at the end of 10 seconds, and it wasn't raining, the weather was perfect. There wasn't a lot of wind, but about 10 seconds later, this huge branch broke off and fell down.
oh
So
my,
I don't know if he heard it cracking just at the very beginning or the vibration or he saw it or what. I don't know how he was able to detect that that branch was going to break off, and it took about 10 seconds. And luckily the tree was very far away. I was never in danger. I'm sure he would have said, hey, we better get out of here because this huge branch is going to fall down on us. But he was able to see it a couple of seconds before it happened.
yeah, they can. I have another Ginger this cat story. When I came home from, and that's in the first book, when I came home from the hospital, uh, and we had made our peace. I was one night I was sleeping on the first floor because I was having a bad night, and I thought, just something case goes wrong, I better be on the first floor. But I fell asleep, and she was on my lap, and I had taken a pain pill, and sometimes you think you're dreaming, and I heard this I thought, is there a tiger in here? And I couldn't wake up. And then I heard it deeper. And finally I struggled away. And as I waking up, she jumps off my lap and is howling like a panther and screaming at the top of her. I mean, it was fierce at the back door. And I was just, well, what's going on? And then I realized, and I threw on the light, and then I heard footsteps going off the back porch. She heard a burglar. I got up, I grabbed the phone, I called 911. They came almost immediately because even though we were living in a very good neighborhood, we were having some break-ins. So they've been patrolling. And when they inspected, there had been a light snow, so there was footprints on the step. And she had scared off the burglar, and the policeman was saying, well, it's a good thing you heard what was going on and you turned on the lights and you called us, and scared him away. And I started to laugh, and I said, I didn't do that. And I said, I was sound asleep. I explained my situation briefly, and I put it down to her, and I said, she scared him off. Well, he started to laugh. She got up and she hissed at him, and he stepped back and he says, how am I going to explain this to my sergeant? My cat tack scares off burglar. But she was fierce in her protection, and no one was coming in her house, you know? So,
one of the things that I liked about your book, and this little bit I will reveal, so hopefully people buy the rest of the book, but because I had never thought of this, where you said that having a cat as a pet is like having a mini lion. And I thought that was so cool. And then further down in the book, you talk about how cats and tigers share a very large percentage of DNA. So you can take your pick. Having a cat as a pet is a mini lion, is a mini tiger, but regardless of which one of the two, it sounds like they're still pretty fierce.
yes, and they want to protect who they've bonded to. In fact, when you mention tigers, tigers and cats all have similar DNA, but tigers love water. Lions don't. Lions will go into water, want only to drink or to chase prey or cross. And if a prey goes in the water, they'll just kind of think, do I have to go in the water and get you? But if they have to go across, they will do it. But tigers literally, they will have a pool party. They will splash around. They will roll in the water. They just love the water. Ginger didn't like the water, but it's amazing when you see a lion and a tiger and the difference in their personalities as far as water. And in fact, Ginger, well, she would poke her head in the shower thinking about it, and she'd look, okay, you're okay. And after I was finished, she would go into the shower and lick the water off the shower floor. It was, and that was always fascinating how they liked water, and they like fresh running water. So every time I kept 2 cups, one on the sink, she trained me, and one in the shower. And when I'd go into the bathroom, I would freshen up one of the cups, and she would drink out of it. And that would happen maybe 6 times a day. You go in and out, and she'd follow, and she would get her fresh water.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like we said, the cats will train you. Now, JoAnn, let me ask you, because by the way, the book has gotten very good reviews on Amazon and other places, and some of the reviews have been from teachers that have, shared the book with their kids, and their students, young students. Um, in the case of this book, as in the case in the prior book, is your target audience kids? Is your target audience adults? Is your target audience everybody? Because it seems like, again, I read it as an adult, obviously, and I enjoyed it tremendously, but it would seem to me that kids would enjoy it even more.
Well, when I write, I don't dumb it down. I write like I'm writing for adults. What initially surprised me is a teacher that I know, Margaret Campbell in California. In fact, she had helped me with some of the book. And she wrote back and she says, I took the book in. I sent her the book as a thank you. And she wrote back and said, I had the book. She had advanced readers, 9 years old, who was in an advanced class. And she said, the kids love the book. I have one, and she sent me a picture. They're not allowed to send a full picture, but just the one kid holding the book. And that this is now her favorite book. And will you please send me 5 more books, because my class is fighting over it. They want all the kids. She says the girls and the boys love the book, and I was surprised. And then I gave one of the managers in my building has a son, and I gave her the book as a thank you for some of the things that she had been kind in doing for us in the building. And she took a picture of her son holding the book, and he made a book report out of it. And he absolutely loves it. And he has friends, and he reads the book to them. And I gave him the fun feline facts just last week, and she said we had a party, like a sleepover, a bunch of little boys. He said he had the book out and he was reading the book of all the facts about cats to his white friends. She says, I thought they'd be, and they were all listening to the facts. I was just amazed. I've had women who are 90 some years old say, I love the cat. I love the cat book. So unwittingly, to me, this has a wide range. I say from 90 to 90. The one woman, Margaret, she's going to be 98. She bought the book and absolutely loves it, and is going to give it to her great grandchildren, the next book. So I'm surprised. I'm delighted because I know Ginger the cat liked a lot of people, and if she liked you, she'd get on the phone with you and meow at you. I don't know if your cats do that or not, but
Yeah. Oh yeah, I can tell you very quickly during that, and again, every cat has their own little personality. So this was one cat in particular, but there was one cat in particular, and this was a couple of years ago during the pandemic when everything was over video chat, and I joined this platform that I do video chats, business related, literally all over the world. And I wish I had kept a map. It didn't occur to me because I didn't see how this was again going to develop and how the cat was going to train me. But every time I had a video chat, he would sit on my lap and look at the camera and look at the person and it was a two-person video chat. And this cat has been seen literally around the world during the pandemic. I'll be very honest, countries that I didn't even know existed, he's been seen. So it's like I said, I wish I had kept a little map with little dots on it because he would have been all over the world. I know you have a cat that and this is what's interesting to me, not only like to watch TV, but like to watch particular programs.
yes, especially during well, while I was recovering, and then as she got older, because we moved from a house to an apartment, and I did that because I had X amount of energy after the surgery. And I made a decision. If I was going to keep as active as I like to be, I didn't need to be taking care of a house and worrying about the grass and, does this need painted? What happens when the plumbing gets fixed? That kind of thing, which you as a homeowner have no struggle with. And so when we moved to the apartment, I was really worried because at that time she would have been going on 17. And I thought, is she going to adapt? Well, she did. She adapted well. The only thing well, there's several things that she did differently. I could not close a door on her at all. Absolutely no, no. And in fact, if you did, especially the bathroom door, she was still capable of getting up on her hind legs and bang, 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 bang at the door. I mean, and the apartment next door would hear her. So forget the privacy. She is right in there. She did that a few times when I left the apartment to go out, but she stopped that, thank goodness. And but she liked television more. But there were certain programs that she liked more. And one of the programs that she liked was Hallmark, the Christmas series. And she'd watch it, but she told me she was quite disappointed. And this is going to be in her third book, Ginger the Cat Loves Christmas. She was quite disappointed that cats were not featured. There were dogs, but there were no cat stories. And she wanted me to write Hallmark and complain. But she would watch television. She would. I also had to move her bed underneath my desk when I wrote. And then when I would write, and I usually write with my shoes off, her paws would be on my foot. And that's how, and so we actually became closer in many ways. And that she wanted to talk to more people on the phone. If she knew your voice, she was there. Like my friend Randy. Randy would talk to her, and Ginger go, and then they go back and forth, Uh, so she adapted quite well to the apartment after I'd only got out a few times, and she had arthritis by then because she was a super mature cat. And she would get down the hall. Well, I couldn't run fast. She couldn't run fast. A couple neighbors were standing there laughing at both of us as I'm trying to get her. And then finally she'd stop. All right, pick me up and carry me home. So it was, it's a good move for us. She made new friends in the building, and that was good. And when she passed, we did it here at home. I was just amazed. Um, and she hated cars so bad, Sal, that every time I took her to the vet, she would cry pitifully. And I talked to a friend who had cats, and she came over and saw her and knew a lot about them. She says, I think you can do this at home if you have the courage to do it. And I thought, well, I'm not going to put her in the car and have her be, frightened and terrorized. So we actually did it at home. And I was very grateful for that. And my son and his wife came and helped me. And um, it was a loss, but her spirit's with me here, and that's why I write the books.
Yeah. Oh no, from personal experience, I can tell you, and anybody that's gone through this, losing a pet, a cat, a dog, any other pet is like losing a family member. And actually, this goes back to the very beginning of the conversation, and something that people have to think about. If you're thinking of adopting a pet or letting a cat adopt you, think about ahead that at the end it will be very traumatic and very painful. So the good comes with the bad. Make sure you realize that and you're prepared for that, because at the end, when they start to get sick and they go downhill, and the final moments come, it's not easy. And some people get traumatized. They say, okay, I'm never going to have a pet again. I'm never going to have a cat again. There's never going to be anybody like so and so. And, eventually they go back, but it is very hard. Um, we've been at this conversation for a while now, and it's been fantastic. But I do want to mention two things that I learned from your book, that I will put in the comments also for people that are, maybe listening in the car or just don't want to write things down. But I do want to mention August the 8th is International Cat Day. So that's a very important one. And October 29th, we're here in September as we're filming this show. So, August has gone by, but we're still in time for October. October 29th is National Cat Day in the US. So we have those two dates. Um, we've talked about how cats have abilities and personalities and interest. People don't realize, and I am convinced, okay, I don't know if there's any scientific research on this, but I am convinced that at least some cats and at least some dogs have a sense of humor, and some of them can smile. I have no doubt the scientists can confirm it or deny it, or do whatever they want. And I'm sure that a lot of people that have lived with cats and dogs will fall on my side, that confirming that they do have, not only personalities, but again, a sense of humor, and some of them can smile. I had a boxer that it was very clear to me he could smile. He did it at the right times and in the right situations. And again, I'm sure he was mimicking,
Yeah.
but they learn how to mimic and they know how to do it correctly. Um, and the last thing I'll say is, and I had a cat that learned to say no. And he said no incredibly clearly because one time I wanted to get him out of my hair. I was going to put him in this room. So I opened the door, and as I was going to put him in there, he grabbed the edge of that door and he said, I wish I had been able to record it, but he said, no, 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 three times in
Oh,
a row. And I said, okay, fine. And then I let him go, and he knew that whatever he needed to kind of let me do my thing. But it was very clear to me he communicated his intentions that
yes.
day, and he knew what he was saying. Um, and maybe the last thing I'll say, JoAnn, and I'll let you close it out, but after reading your entire book, all the facts, all the figures, all the stories, I have to tell you, I was feeling a little jealous about the cats, but I decided not to be jealous at the end because this is what I learned. I learned that we have 9,000 taste buds, but
Mm,
cats only have 470. And
yes.
that means that cats can't taste sweet things. Um, so as much as I was feeling jealous, I'm not anymore. Um, is there anything you would like to say to close out this show? We've been having an incredible conversation for almost an hour here.
Well, first of all, thank you, and it was so good to share things about Ginger the cat, especially with another friend and animal owner. And I think in closing now is that our animals really become part of us. And for those of you who don't have an animal, like Sal said, they pick you, and that is a real compliment to you. And take care of them. And if you decide not to have an animal, please donate to a shelter uh, so that someone else can have the blessing of an animal. So thank you, Sal. It was great talking and sharing our common love.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. I hope this video has been instructive to people that are thinking of letting themselves be adopted by a cat or a dog. And hopefully resonates with people that already have one and can relate to everything we've been saying. So thank you very much.